नमस्कार, सत श्री अकाल, राम राम सा, खमाणी, वड़क्कम, प्रणाम। आप सभी का ऑल्टरनेट मीडिया में फिर से स्वागत है। आई एम ऑनर्ड टू हैव विक्रम सूद सर फॉर द फर्स्ट टाइम ऑन आवर चैनल द ऑल्टरनेट मीडिया. Vikram Sood sir, I think the introduction that I'm going to be giving is very small, with the kind of stature and the kind of tall man he is. He has been the ex-raw officer, raw chief rather, not officer, sorry, the ex-raw chief, the research and analysis wing, the most formidable organizations that India has and will ever have, and it is continuing to. Sir, I'm losing my words. Forgive me for that because I'm so happy and delighted to have you that I can't control my happiness, and the words are betraying me today. Sir is also associated as an advisor to ORF, Observer Research Foundation. He's been mentored by B. Raman sir, and he was interviewed by none other than Rao sir. They say no, the cowboys, the nickname for Raw at times. Apart from that, sir has written two books, and both of them are one of the best sellers in the Indian subcontinent and also across the world. The Unending Game and सर द अनएंडिंग गेम के बारे में प्लीज जरूर थोड़ा सा बताइएगा बिकॉज पीपल ऑलरेडी आस्क्ड मी अबाउट दैट एंड द अल्टीमेट गोल. These two books are kind of must have books to everybody who wants to know about law and order, terrorism, and related matter. So with that, a very warm welcome on the show, sir.
Thank you, Gayatri, for calling me on your show. I've watched your shows very often in the past, and I'm now delighted to participate in one of them. And I hope we have a great interaction discussing various topics that you have in mind. आपने पूछा था कि किताब के बारे में कुछ बताएं, तो जो अनएंडिंग गेम है वो इट इज़ अबाउट इंटरनेशनल एस्पियोनाज. It is not about RAW. It is about how spies, how the game is played. And, you know, you have wars, लड़ाइयाँ होती हैं, you have ceasefire, you have peace declared, and people go home. In espionage, there is no end. You conduct your espionage in peacetime, wartime, whatever. Morning, evening, every time you are supposed to be conducting your espionage. So the unending game is about that, how nations do it. I've given examples of other countries, how they do it. I've given some anecdotes about various espionage, activities, and also in the end mentioned how we need intelligence per se को ज़रूरत है to keep in touch कि जैसे आपके खिलाफ थ्रेट्स बढ़ते हैं उसी के मुताबिक आपको अपना टैक्टिक्स स्ट्रेटजीज अडॉप्ट करनी पड़ेंगी और आगे की सोच के अभी करना पड़ेगा आपको कि आगे क्या होने वाला. आगे हाई टेक होगा तो आप क्या करेंगे. हाउ विल यू हैंडल हाई टेक एस्पियोनाज. आपको उसके लिए ट्रेन कराना है, इक्विपमेंट चाहिए, मटेरियल चाहिए. So all that has to be worked out in advance. The ultimate goal is about how nations अपने कहानियाँ कैसे गढ़ते हैं अपने बारे में, मेरे बारे में, दुनिया के बारे में, और क्या क्या रवैये, क्या क्या इंस्ट्रूमेंट्स यूज़ करते हैं. और वेस्टर्न इंटेलिजेंस सिस्टम्स में तो पेंटागन या CIA ने तो हॉलीवुड का बेहद इस्तेमाल किया है. खूब उनके यहाँ कहानियाँ बना बना के कितने अच्छे हैं, कितने पावरफुल हैं. और इट इज़ नॉट के इन योर फेस जिसको बोलते वो नहीं होता. इट इज़ वेरी सटल. इट इज़ डन सटली. इट इज़ डन बाय इंसिनुएशन जिसको बोलते हैं, डायरेक्शन बता के, थोड़ा सा हिंट दे के. और जैसे बुश ने कहानी, अमेरिकन ने कहानी बनाई थी ना इराक वॉर से पहले कि उनके पास WMD है और अलकायदा बैठा हुआ वहाँ पे हेडक्वार्टर्स हैं. खूब ज़ोरों शोरों से मीडिया में छपी, इंटरव्यूज़ हुई, TV पे आए और एक दिन अटैक कर दिया. ना WMD मिला, ना अलकायदा मिला. पर मकसद सर्व हो गया आपका. सो ये दिस इज हाउ narratives are built, or disinformation, information, misinformation, all is carried out there. The idea is to suborn the mind of the other side. उसको अगर आपके बारे में इल्म हो जाए कि आप सबसे अच्छे हैं, तो मैं आपके जैसा बनना चाहता हूँ, तो ये एक माइंड गेम है. इट्स अ वेपन, मीन्स ऑफ कंट्रोल एंड डोमिनेंस. आपको इट इज़ नॉट इनफ कि मेरे को किसी ने असला दे दिया या इकोनॉमिक एड दे दी, बट ऑल्सो दैट मुझे आप अपनी तरफ काबू कर सके. मैं वही करूं जो आप मुझे कहते हैं करूं, या बिना आपके कहने से कर दूं आइडियली, तो आपकी सबॉर्निंग पूरी हो गई, आप उनके कब्जे में आ गए. बहुत होता है आपको, और न्यूज़पेपर्स में, टीवी शोज में कई दफ़ा आता है. सिनेमा इज अ ग्रेट वेपन. जो विजुअल इम्पैक्ट होता है ना, that lingers, that stays in your mind for much longer. तो it's a great weapon for using. और हमारे यहाँ भी अगर आप टेररिस्ट को हीरो बना देंगे तो फिर बाकी लोग टेररिस्ट बनना चाहेंगे ना जल्दी से. फिर
हमने
आप
ऐसी मूवीज भी देखी है जहां पर टेररिस्ट को जस्टिफाई किया गया है, टेररिज्म को जस्टिफाई किया गया है.
हाँ, तो ये होता है, और हमारे यहाँ बनती हैं कहानियाँ ऐसी.
जी, जी. सर, आज का टॉपिक है द थ्रेट टू इंडिया, द एक्सटर्नल एंड इंटरनल टेररिज्म विद रिस्पेक्ट टू इंडिया, बोथ एक्सटर्नल एंड इंटरनल. जी सर.
ऐसा है कि ट्रेडिशनली तो हम कहते हैं कि चाइना, पाकिस्तान और टेररिज्म हमारे लिए मेन थ्रेट्स हैं. ये तो सबको मालूम है. पाकिस्तान की कहानी तो अब कह कह के थक गए ना, हम क्या कर सकते हैं, वो क्या करते हैं. पर बात ये है कि उनकी एबिलिटी लिमिटेड है. टेरर कर लेंगे ना, हमारे इस पर फतह तो नहीं कर सकते ना, हमारा रहने का तरीका तो नहीं चेंज कर सकते, हमारे को सबॉर्डिनेट तो नहीं कर लेंगे ना अपना. टेररिज्म समथिंग वी कैन हैंडल, हम बरसों से करते आए हैं. और मेरे ख्याल में हमारे पास दुनिया में सबसे बड़ी एंटर टेरर फोर्स है. आर्मी में है, प्राइवेट में, पैरामिलिट्री में है. सो वी हैव दैट कैपेबिलिटी ऑफ हैंडलिंग द प्रॉब्लम. Solution is elsewhere, but to handle, control, and let it not happen again, it is there. और कुछ सालों में तो हमने ये भी, we have also shown the ability to hit back, to strike. It is not necessary to destroy everything. Symbolism is enough. That is the narrative we've made. Okay, if you hit, I'll hit you back. I do it where I want. So ये जो मैसेज जाता है तो उससे आपको एक हौसला बढ़ता है, आपकी फोर्स का हौसला बढ़ता है, आपकी पॉपुलेशन का हौसला बढ़ता है, एंड यू आर बेटर एबल टू हैंडल टेररिज्म ऑन द ग्राउंड. अब देखिए 2008 में नवंबर में मुंबई में मैसिव टेरर हुआ. नवंबर 26 हमने कुछ नहीं किया. सो दूसरा आदमी भी देखता है ना कि ये क्या हो रहा है जी, ये तो दे आर नॉट विलिंग टू फाइट. अगर आप उस दिन रात को ही कुछ कर देते तो आई एम श्योर द रेस्ट ऑफ द वर्ल्ड हैव सेड इट वाज नेसेसरी, बट वी मिस्ड इट. सो पाकिस्तान इज a problem of a limited nature. It will not go away because the way Pakistan is built, constructed, handled, and now where it is, इनके जहन से नहीं जाएगा. They will continue to create problem alone and with somebody else. The Chinese का दूसरा है, it's a long term game of control and domination. दुनिया में all powers want this. Americans have had control and dominance over the globe for a long time. China is the new power on the scene. Both want the same thing. Both probably now end up saying कि चल आधा तेरा आधा मेरा. We are the two big powers now. Russia is now on the decline. उनका नहीं है. But the problem also is that both these countries खुद के हालात भी इतने अच्छे नहीं है ना. Americans have shown that they are able to extend their reach globally. The whole world is divided into American commands: Pacific Command, Central Command, Africa Command, European Command, Northern Command, Southern Command, Americas का. The only country who does this. हमारे यहाँ तो अपनी आर्मी को हम डिवाइड करते हैं ना, उनका कंट्रोल विद इन इंडिया ही है ना. वी डोंट से कि आप दुनिया को बांट लें किस किस एरिया में क्या करना है. सो यू हैव दिस great force, 800 bases all over the world, missiles of the biggest kind, the best kind, most effective, technology superior to anybody else, perhaps. Probably in competition now, Chinese and the Americans are leveling up. ये है इनके पास. पर जब युद्ध होता है, जब लड़ाई होती है, तो क्या होता है? Americans were in Afghanistan for 20 years in their phase 2. आखिर में क्या हुआ? One night they left. One night they just packed up and left. Iraq war में क्या हुआ? They went in, massive killings. Then what happened? The thing just got out of control and they withdrew. Iraq, Syria, all those places were hurt. Then you have Ukraine. What has happened? The Americans were saying कि हम NATO को 1 इंच ईस्ट एक्सपैंड नहीं करेंगे after the collapse of the Soviet Union. They said not an inch eastward, but they didn't do that. लेते गए, ज्वाइन कराते गए, नेटो को बढ़ाते गए, बढ़ाते गए, बढ़ाते गए. व्लादिमीर पुतिन ने कहा कि आप यूक्रेन में मत जाना, ये मेरी रेड लाइन है, मत जाना. बार बार कहा उसने. उनके एम्बेसडर विलियम बर्न्स ने भी यही कहा. अपने मेमो में उसने लिखा था अमेरिकन्स को कि मत करिए, दिस इज अ नो नो, नियत नियत फॉर द रशियंस. So they did it. And they did it, and then you knew that you've crossed the red line, and you have a war on your hands. Where who's winning? Not the Americans, surely. So you can't. There is a limitation to everything in life. There's a limitation of power. There's a limitation of wealth. You know, कुछ limit हो जाती है beyond which it comes to bite you. So this is what is happening now. The Americans, despite all the desires, and the ability on paper to do it, are not able to have the world run at their command. Now, other powers are rising. The Chinese are there. They want to be the masters of the Western Pacific. They want to be controlling this Indian subcontinent. And they're worried about the Indian Ocean. Who will control the Indian Ocean? यहाँ पे कोई नहीं है अभी. No power, major power is really in the Indian Ocean. So that is the importance of the Bay of Bengal. We'll come to that later. Then you have a growing China needs markets, needs resources. It will go everywhere in the world to get it. The Americans helped China become a superpower. इन्होंने ही रास्ता खोला था ना in the era of globalization and cheap Chinese products, etc., which suited the Americans to keep the inflation down. Their companies were making money, and the Chinese didn't have any labor laws about how they treated labor, so it was easy. In the process, you made the narrative then was we are doing this because we want, at the end of it, the Chinese will become democratic and liberal once they're economically strong. So they succeeded in making China economically strong, but they didn't succeed in making them change their power structures or their political attitudes. The CCP only became stronger and stronger. The Chinese have now control over many other countries through their economic financial help, and many of them are now indebted to China. So, and there is a law in China, Ministry of State Security का एक law है, which says that every Chinese abroad is bound by duty to report on what's happening.
So
If you
every
don't,
Chinese is a potential spy staying in the other country.
in any other country, yes. I think it's law number 7, I'm not sure, but we'll have to check that out. It is that. So you have that law, it makes it easier for you to collect information because there are so many Chinese all over the world working in very sensitive places. The law is there. You try this, having this law in India, तो देखिए क्या हाल होता है. या होने देंगे हम? नहीं होने देंगे ना. So that is their secret of success. You don't have you don't have an opposition party. Everything is owned by the Chinese Communist Party. The PLA is bounden to them, not to the country of China, to the CCP. So Xi Jinping is really the must. There's no, there's no, there's no social media which will criticize the Chinese government or exposes or what's happening maybe in Xinjiang or Hunan or Tibet. Nothing is known except what the Chinese want to tell you. There is no opposition party which will keep on trying to obstruct instead of being a constructive partner. Then they, there's no they have no such hindrances. So and surveillance is total at street corners, at level crossings, streets up and down, houses perhaps, and office space of course. So you're covered all the time. We're talking of a different world in China today, and different world in America where things seem to be becoming strange. You let people come and steal your in your stores, उठा के ले जा रहे हैं, and you just stand and watch. You say the storekeeper or the employee is not required to defend that by law. He takes it, he takes it. So these are sociological conditions that are happening in in America where it's no longer as strong as it used to be. Economically, it has got problems. Militarily, it is not able to deliver wherever it goes. And what else? So
So
you have.
one geography which I would like to draw your attention is Israel also, Middle
I
East.
will, we'll talk about Israel also. So the other way of controlling other countries is through regime change. And regime change is not something that is happening that happens overnight. अरसा लगता है, सालों साल लग जाते हैं. You build up your climate, your uh, the playing field. You have to build it up first and then attack. So that is going on. The United States and the West feel that they should continue to have the control that they always had, and it's not working. I think Bangladesh was a similar attempt. It didn't happen just because the students wanted it. And how did the students get out onto the street? And how did it get taken over by the Islamists after she had gone? And where did the interim government suddenly come in? Actually, it was a military coup when the general told Sheikh Hasina to go, resign and go. Only we put in the interim government so quickly, it seemed as if it's happened automatically. It was all part of the structure. He made her resign. The new interim head flew in, and you got a new arrangement. And Ukraine is a crisis which will not end happily for anyone. Israel, Hamas is another thing which is. When Hamas or Hezbollah say that we are कि हमारे तो जो गोल है कि हम इसको तबाह करके एनाहिलेट कर देना है इसराइल को और जूस को. What do you think they will do? They will defend to the best of their capability. And what happened on the 7th of October is phenomenal. Whether it is an intelligence failure or not, I don't know. I'm not sure. But it did happen and did bring in a reaction which was heavy by all means. But the Israelis knew where to go. They knew that in that Al Shifa hospital, they have an underground arsenal, and that's the headquarters, and that's where you should go and hit all the tunnels they knew. So their intelligence is a capable, lethal organization. How did they get hold of the two Hamas leaders in their houses? So they must have had accurate intelligence all the time. I am not I really don't know where it will end, this Israel and Hamas thing. Ultimately, I suppose there will have to be some negotiation, some peace will have to be worked out, because what is the staying power of these organizations? They're not military forces and stuff like that where they can continue for weeks, months, years. You can't. It's too expensive, too unwieldy. So ultimately, the Hamas will have to sit down and say, we'll talk and we'll agree to what you are saying. What it shows is that if you are determined, if you are sure of what you want to do, then you must be prepared to take the global assault against you. अब कराया हमास ने है. The world is sympathizing with the Palestinians. Really? How is that? Because over the years they built up this capacity to turn the story. First, you be the instigator of violence, and when you get retaliation, you become a victim. Victimhood का ये फायदा उठा रहे हैं. And nobody else, people probably don't understand that when they support them on this, they're actually weakening the cause of the, either weakening it or making the Israelis more determined to finish it. So the ultimate outcome has to be a negotiated settlement. You can't annihilate either side. You can't do that. No Arab country, no Muslim country wants Palestinians in their country, but they will support the cause of Islam, of Palestine, which is rather strange. You are on your own, but we'll support you. And then there is this other war which is going on, the Houthis in Yemen, which is not, and it's a Sunni Shia battle. Iran is the fulcrum of many of these activities. So, and Iran is also a powerful country. The Middle East will be a mess. Ukraine will remain a mess. And Europe is facing the onslaught of immigrants, which they've invited, and now they're becoming a huge problem. यूके में तो आई बिलीव कई कई जगह में तो इन्होंने शरिया लॉ लागू कर दी है. They've also introduced blasphemy as a punishable offense. So the trends are not good. Chinese economy is in a tumble, I believe. The American economy is on the decline. Their political will, their ability to dominate is limited. And for India, it's a strange situation that we are now, our economy is booming when the world is in a mess. So how will it pan out for us ultimately? Where will we gain? How will we gain? So our leaders have to think a lot about the future, how they're going to handle our neighborhood, because ultimately I think the neighborhood depends on us, barring Pakistan. Barring Pakistan. If they've made their choice, so unko it's up to them. They made their choice of permanent enmity. So be it. But we are still a country to reckon. I would not use the word growing power, etc. It's not so easy. But can you not see the kinds of attacks that are coming on us. I think the West cannot afford India as another economic power, superpower like China, both in Asia, both nuclear, both strong militarily. Can they accept that without feeling that their role is being limited? We'll fight for the same, or we'll go for the same raw materials, we'll go for the same markets. We'll stop being just a source of material or a market. We'll have our own. So that is a problem for anybody else who's lived it the other way around all along. India ideally should be a commercially, economically thriving country, but under control. So a few days after we have Bangladesh, we have Hindenburg Part 2, we have the Council on the Religious USCRF bringing out something again about religion in India, but how we are ill-treating minorities and so on. अभी और आएंगे. They will the way they it's a power game that they're playing with us. They will there will be more such attacks. Democracy is always under threat in India. And mind you, democracy is only a slogan. It's not the goal. How many autocrats does the West support? They're all over the world. At one time, during the height of the Cold War, I think they had 60 or 65 autocratic regimes as supporting them to bring in democracy in the rest of the world. The irony of it. Dictators are helping America bring in democracy in the rest of the world. तो democracy तो एक goal है जी, एक it's a peg you hang your coat on. Don't mean it seriously. Democracy is only inside America. बाकी जगह तो unless you were with me, you're against me. So,
Democracy is more of a tool for the Americans to use it when they want.
sorry?
Democracy is a tool to
Ah,
bring down governments whenever they want at their whims and fancies.
they have no objection in dealing with Pakistan when it deals with. We never got any democracy bonus. 1972 में क्या हुआ था? With Bangladesh was 71 में. They were siding with the Pakistanis because Pakistanis had helped Nixon establish a link with Mao. So they didn't want that to be upset. So, besides, I think they've always tried to play a balancing game. And in 2006, I think there was a clarification kind of thing issued describing their national security doctrine, which meant that all regional powers should act as balancing forces, like satellites around US, equidistant from US, but no regional power should become so strong as to affect American interests in that region. So, agar India is becoming too powerful, you must pull up Pakistan. If China is becoming too powerful, you try and pull up India. You know, that way. And that's actually been an old game they've played in China को जब मिलने गए थे निक्सन तो it was against Russia, Soviet Union. But Mao was smarter than all that. He didn't fall for that. He had his differences with the Russians, Soviets, but it didn't result in an immediate bonhomie between the two countries. वो तो जब Deng Xiaoping आया Chao En-lai के बाद तब शुरू हुआ. When he opened up, then the Chinese Americans got in and started the globalization. So democracy, human rights is another thing they will always keep talking about. Human rights violations, religious persecution.
Institution.
Arey Baba, we are in India secular because the majority is secular. So everybody knows, anybody who knows India should accept that. We are what we are because the majority is what it is. And because we are a majority doesn't make us majoritarian. There are Christian countries all over the world. They are democracies. They don't push their Christianity on everybody else. Nor do we push our Hinduism on anybody else. So why have this? These are weapons. These are instrumentalities that are used to keep control over others. So yeah, there was something else I forgot. Anyway, this is all. These are instrumentalities short of uh, kinetic power. You use these methods to control, and fighting long distance wars for America is out. They will not do it. They can't do it. After Vietnam, after Iraq, they won't do it.
That's why they
So,
left Bangladesh. They shut
हाँ जी,
down their embassy. That's why they left Bangladesh.
हाँ, वहां से तो बगली है ना, ताकि कुछ हो ना जाए, काउंटर रिएक्शन ना हो जाए. सो तो चले गए वहां से. तो ये इनका ये चलेगा अभी तो. And the the lower down you go in that scale, the more aggressive you might be. So you will find more and more activities inside India. And besides, you can't do this in a vacuum. तो होता नहीं है. तो आपको कोई local ही चाहिए तो करेगा ना. You need local support to do all this. The students in Bangladesh didn't get organized overnight automatically. Somebody has to be putting it together. Suddenly it becomes different, it becomes Islamic in character. How? How did the Indian farmers go for such a long strike? Who supported them? Which was, who supported Shaheen Bagh kind of thing, the Delhi riots? ये कोई spontaneous नहीं होता. I can understand कि आपका रोड साइड पे झगड़ा हो गया, कार एक्सीडेंट हो गया, दो आदमी भिड़ गए, झगड़ा हो गया, थोड़ा बढ़ गया, दो चार लोग पिटपटा गए, अस्पताल चले गए, or even somebody gets killed. But to organize a riot is an organized system. It's it is not spontaneous. It takes organization, it takes logistic supports, it takes money. Oyada, that person, I wonder if you remember, in the Delhi riots days, a fellow had on his terrace a slingshot where he would feed stones and throw them. And he had
That
a lot of bricks and stones kept there as weapons. He was prepared. He had bottles of uh, to light Molotov
acids
cocktail.
and
तो
mocktails.
ये तैयार करके रखे हुए थे. तो ये जब लड़ाई शुरू हो जाती तब तो नहीं आते, ये तो पहले से बना के रखा है. So riots are organized, movements are organized, processions and protest movements are organized. They cannot continue up beyond 1 or 2 days without support, without continuous support. So we have to be careful. अब जैसे बंगाल में कलकत्ता में हुआ this horrible incident of the doctor being killed, molested and killed. This is another place where people can get organized differently. So problems will be there for us. किसी को कोई प्रॉब्लम है लोकली, किसी को कुछ और प्रॉब्लम है, कोई लैंग्वेज की इशू है, कोई रिलीजन की है, economic issues, caste issues are being played up. So we have to, this is our economic boom that is going to come to us if we play it right. If we can handle these situations, if we can control these situations, the economic revival of India. अब तो डॉक्टर गोपीनाथ ने कह दिया है कि भाई आप यू विल बी द थर्ड लार्जेस्ट इकोनॉमी इन 2027, नॉट 2029. And if these agricultural reforms and these other reforms had been allowed to go through, we would have probably hit 10% rate of growth. But we put it by. अब रोहिंग्यास को आपने भर दिया हिंदुस्तान में, छत्तीसगढ़ में बैठे हैं, जम्मू में बैठे हैं, मध्य प्रदेश में बैठे हैं. When you want a national register, people object because that means that they'll be throwing their people out. So we don't do the NCR. We don't do CAA. So unless, opposition to hogi, but we have to handle it. We have to be able to internationally and internally able to deal with this, anticipate and deal. So for every issue there is a counter in India. Every issue. I wish our opposition were more helpful, which they are not, sadly, because it ultimately affects the country. You cannot degrade a position that you want to aspire, that you aspire for it yourself. You want to be prime minister, but you degrade the prime minister. का औहदा तो नहीं चलता है ना, ऐसा नहीं बनती है सरकार. प्राइम मिनिस्टर तो आपका प्राइम मिनिस्टर है. He is elected. He is representative. There are other ways of opposing him. There are better ways of opposing him. You have to give alternate suggestions to the government. You have to have your own plan beyond just acquisition of power. You have to give the other side, not freebies. That's not policy. Freebies are bribes. If anybody wants to promise freebie, he should tell the people, this is how I would budget it. This is where the money will come from. प्रॉमिस कर दिया मैं आपको 10 रुपए में दे दूंगा चीज जो बाकी जगह 20 या 30 में मिले, तो who is going to make the difference? On the one hand, you say you will give the farmer its minimum price, and the other side you give him stuff which is even more expensive otherwise. उसको दे देते हैं. So you can't do it both ways. You can't do it without working it out. That's how we are today. Anything else you want me to?
So, just a few minutes on the play out in the Indian Ocean. What is happening right now?
There's a lot of talk about the St. Martin's Island. There is Chinese presence at Chokpyu in Myanmar, Chokpyu, I think, in the Arakan coast. And we have our islands, Andaman Islands, where we have the Andaman Command. Now, in the Indian Ocean, there is no American presence, no Chinese presence. The only fellows who are there, to a certain, to the extent that we can, are the Indians. St. Martin's Island is a very small island. You can't have a huge base. It'll probably be a boarding, what is staging post or things like that. The Chinese would want their sea lines safe all the time. एक चर्चा ये भी है कि isthmus of Kra, उसके बीच में से अगर आप canal निकाल दें in Thailand, then it'll connect the Bay of Bengal with the South China Sea directly the without the um, Malacca Straits. That is one aspect. दूसरा है कि the Chinese would, with their interest in India, would want to have a bigger presence in the Indian Ocean. They have some presence here. They have a presence in Gwadar. They thought they might have had a presence in the Maldives, but maybe not. And then they have a presence in the Red Sea, uh, Djibouti. So they want to become a naval power to be able to. It probably looks like it's going to be a India specific movement. At the same time, controlling the flow of trade through the Indian Ocean. I believe 80% of the trade goes through the Indian Ocean. So that's vital. Oil is vital. And the oil that you might carry overland from Gwadar is uncertain because you don't know how much you will carry. And there's very much, and as compared to the sea routes, the overland routes are much smaller in volume. So it will be, um, the vital thing is the sea route. The Chinese look at, the Americans look at China as their final ultimate rival now. So Bangladesh में वो भी हैं, the Chinese भी वहीं हैं, they have military असला दिया है, submarine दिए हैं, पैसा दिया है. They have an interest in Bangladesh, but I think their interests are more India specific for the present than anything bigger. They would be quite happy to have the Isthmus Canal, the Kra Canal, the ports in Myanmar, Hambantota, if still available, Maldives, Badar, and on to Djibouti. These are the present goals there. Americans will one day probably want to have a bigger command or even give a bigger force strength, naval force strength in the region. A helpful India would do, but I don't think that's happening. They've gone in for this AUKUS, Australia, UK, US combined, where they are promising submarines to Australia. पर सुना है कि even in Australia now there are some people who have second thoughts about AUKUS because the feeling is that it will be the Australians and the New Zealanders who will fight the wars in Taiwan, not the Americans. Should that happen? So it's all a flux. The world is in a flux. We are actually quietly unraveling. or maybe
So
not so
just
quiet.
just a winding up question. What exactly happened in Bangladesh that China is so quiet? I think yesterday they made a statement that US is meddling in the affairs of Bangladesh or something of that sort. A statement came out yesterday only. But why is China withdrawing or keeping so silent and mum? This is very deafening. This is very unlikely of China. Did some background deal happen or something has happened uh, in the backyards?
Background deal between who? The Chinese and the Americans?
This was being said by a couple of people also. So I was like, okay, but
I think
there was something.
there's a lot of speculation about all this. Nobody really knows what's going on. Why have the Americans run away? And why have the Chinese kept quiet? Uh, how did this the interim government suddenly get into being overnight? So Chinese normally wouldn't give any comment unless their interests are directly hurt. अभी तो they just they, we are it is if anybody is lost out in the game, it seems to be India. Pakistanis are probably feeling very happy about the whole thing कि ये हो गया. एक चीज और है बांग्लादेश में यार, चलो ड्राइवर deviate. You know, Suravardi was a Bengali who organized the famous Calcutta में जो direct action day हुआ था against the Hindus, 17th of August today, 1946. And that speeded up the breakup. Sheikh Mujib was at one time a protege of Hussein Surawardi, but left him in 1953, I think, to form his own Awami League after dropping the word Muslim from it. तो ये चलता रहा. They got independence through the Awami League, the Mukti Bahini, Indian assistance. But 3 years later, 3.5 years later, Mujib was gone. And the Islamists took over. Well, the right wing took over. Islamists maybe too strong, but Jamaat Islami became important. You had Zia Rahman and taking control and becoming closer to the Pakistanis. That continued till Sheikh Hasina came back into the scene. They took, she lasted for, this was the third term. But she was becoming unpopular as the time progressed because ये होता है politics में. So I think that Islamic radicalism. But do you remember that 2015 or 16, that attack by ISIS in that cafe in Dhaka?
Yes,
ISIS ने किया था.
it has been mentioned in a movie also by I think John Abraham is in that movie. The
Sorry?
attack in Dhaka. That was
हाँ
also picturized in a movie also.
हाँ. तो ये सब हुआ है. So there is this Razakar, the East Bengali refugees, the East Pakistani refugees who supported Pakistan in that Operation Searchlight and all. All that is forgotten. All that is forgotten. So we are now seeing a drift towards the right, towards Islamism in Bangladesh, which is going to be a problem for us.
Yes.
And I don't know how they're going to treat the Hindus there.
We have difficult times ahead.
Chinese interest in the subcontinent will continue to be as part of their overall goal to be the paramount power in the region. India has to be kept down, and this sort of seems to fit in more with the American goal that Indians should not be allowed to get out of hand. इकोनॉमिक डेवलपमेंट करो, बाकी हम पे छोड़ दो, बाकी हम संभालेंगे आपका. That is not easy. That's not what we would want to do. I think we have to learn to be a little more circumspect about what we do or what we say, not so much about what we do. There's no need to arouse fears elsewhere. हमको इकोनॉमिक डेवलपमेंट करना है, नेशनल आत्मनिर्भरता करना है, जरूर करिए. That is the way to go. After all, every country operates in its own interest. तो हम अपने इंटरेस्ट में करेंगे ना. हमको नेशनल, हमको अपने, वी वांट टू बी सेल्फ रिलायंट, हम करेंगे. और अगर हमको दोस्ती जिससे करनी है जो जो हमको सूट करता है. इट इज नॉट इन माय इंटरेस्ट नॉट टू बाय ऑयल फ्रॉम Russia. I need it. I'll buy it at the cheapest place possible, at the best arrangement possible. It is not in my interest to become economically backward to suit American conditions. Just because I'm not going to support you on Ukraine. You never supported me on Kashmir. So, a self-respecting nation has to be able to take it on its chin, as it were, and carry on. Nobody is going to help us become a big power. No country does that. We have to do it on our own. And there will be a lot of envy and suspicion and opposition to this, because they see it as a problem for themselves. So they will do what they can to put us down up to a point. So
It's a little harsh words, but
we have to sell our story abroad. We have to sell our story abroad. It doesn't get sold. Nobody wants to do it. And then we have our own people going abroad talking against us, their own country. I never heard that before. I know American comes to India on an official delegation or a delegation and talks about how bad his country is. We do it. We have newspaper columnists writing from there whatever they want to write against us, criticizing. Criticism is good. I'm not saying that. I'm saying from where it comes. When it is motivated, then it's bad. So we have a long, long way to go.
थैंक यू सो मच सर फॉर ज्वाइनिंग. जाने से पहले सभी व्यूअर्स से रिक्वेस्ट है, प्लीज लाइक, सब्सक्राइब और शेयर करना ना भूलें. हाँ, पहले उससे पहले द अल्टीमेट गोल एंड द अनएंडिंग गेम अ मस्ट हैव ऑन योर शेल्फ्स. ये दो बुक्स जरूर लेकर आइए. अल्टीमेट गोल नैरेटिव वॉर से रिलेटेड है, मस्ट रीड, क्योंकि वी आर इन अ इंफॉर्मेशन वॉरफेयर वर्ल्ड. यहाँ पर सारी गेम्स, किसको एम्पलीफाई किया जाता है, किसको पुल डाउन किया जाता है, यूट्यूब, सोशल मीडिया, फेसबुक, all these you will find references in there. A must read both the books, The Unending Game and The Ultimate Goal.
Thank you.
लाइक, सब्सक्राइब और शेयर करना ना भूलें. और अगर आप मुझे कंट्रीब्यूट करना चाहते हैं तो यूपीएस स्ट्रीम के ऊपर है. आप फीडबैक देना चाहते हैं, मुझसे जुड़ना चाहते हैं, एक्सपर्टीज शेयर करना चाहते हैं, इन्फॉर्मेशन शेयर करना चाहते हैं, तो सभी लिंक्स डिस्क्रिप्शन बॉक्स में. इसी के साथ जय हिंद, जय श्री राम, हर हर महादेव. थैंक यू सो मच
Jai.
सर. जय हिंद सर.
Namaskar.